out tomorrow. Okay.
What do you want to hear from him?
I want to hear a path forward towards successfully degrading ISIS.
How do you do that?
Well, the president has said that was his goal, but at the same time, the president says, well, they're contained and we think things are going pretty well. I don't know of many folks who would agree with that assessment. So one example is we have more airstrikes in the first 2 months of Afghanistan than we have in the last 16 months of Iraq. So a more serious effort with U.S. leadership is absolutely required. The military details, the military has to decide. It's not for Congress to decide that, but we should insist, I think, on a strategy that leads to success, not a holding pattern.
Because the U.S. military is bound by certain restrictions. They don't want civilian casualties, so-called collateral damage. And if the pilots go in and they've got their bombs, but they get word that ISIS forces are in the midst of a civilian area, they're not going to drop those bombs because they don't want to kill civilians.
Exactly, and ISIS knows what our restrictions are, and they take advantage of it. And they have been, terrorists.
So how do you get around that? If ISIS deliberately plants themselves in the midst of civilians, elderly, women, children, in Raqqa or elsewhere in Syria, how do you get around that?
Well, the key is you've got to leave ISIS guessing. You cannot be so restrictive that we only drop ordnance on about a third of the sorties, and that's what we've been doing. So we have to remove those restrictions. It would also be helpful, by the way, if we had forward air controllers who could help target those airstrikes to be more effective. But the president has not allowed that either.
50 special operations forces are being deployed to Syria right now. That presumably is a start.
Well, 50 guys is not going to turn this struggle around. But my point is there is a series of restrictions we have placed on ourselves which shows the ISIS and shows potential allies that we're not serious, we're not committed, and we're not going to stay with this. That momentum has to be turned.